So I thought that this was really interesting, and I did want to respond to it, and I hope I don't go up to 10 minutes this time because I've been getting really long winded, and that's not okay. But I think this thing that you're saying about like the book selling millions of copies, which is true, like I have copies of these books, like I am part of that movement. And there is truth there. There are people who really resonate with the characters in these books and they really see themselves in the story and they are rooting for these characters and they are buying the books and the merch and all of that. And they're invested in any sort of adaptation that comes out, which we need to stop with the AI slop, guys, because if we don't, we're not getting an adaptation. But this thing about, oh no, the books sell a lot, therefore they're objectively good. I feel like this isn't fair because a lot of things that are bad sell well. Avengers Endgame sold well. Avengers Endgame is garbage. I hate this movie. This movie ruined 10 years of cinema for me. I feel like this is also something that came up with The Life of a Showgirl. The Life of a Showgirl, I think, is Taylor Swift's best selling album. This album is garbage. And I say this as someone who loved the Tortured Poets Department, who, when we were talking about eating the billionaires, there was a thought in my mind where I was like, I would hesitate before eating this billionaire. This album is trash. Now, do I think that ACOTAR is garbage? No. The fact that we have been able to sit, that I personally have been able to sit on this app for an untold amount of minutes and hours and talk about these books, I feel like the books are good. Like I'm not saying that like they're bad, or I'm not saying that like the characters aren't interesting. I don't like them as people, but that doesn't mean that they're not interesting. And because if they weren't interesting, they would be Rowan. And you will never catch me on this app talking about fucking Rowan, because Rowan from Throne of Glass, because Rowan from Throne of Glass is boring. Rhysand and Cassian, as much as I don't like them, I've still spent an untold amount of time talking about them. Therefore, they're interesting characters. They really are. And maybe everything feels like an ACOTAR retread to me for all of SJM's work because I read ACOTAR first. And maybe if you came in through Throne of Glass, you might have a little bit more of a tolerant edge to the way that ACOTAR kind of reiterates upon Throne of Glass and how Crescent City kind of reiterates on the other two. And I would sit here and theorize that all of this iteration and all of these like similar plot points in all three of these series are a part of like an overarching point, a way to like kind of MCU books, which would be a horrible thing to do. But if anybody is going to MCU a bunch of series of books together, it would probably be Sarah. I would think that, except that Sarah has gone on this whole thing about like how it's not that deep. And if things truly aren't that deep, like if that's the case, then that's the case. But the way that Sarah was talking on Call Her Daddy, she was talking a lot about, how the romantasy genre and like smutty books are dismissed for not having anything to say. But she's also saying that it's not that deep. Therefore, what do you think that your books are saying? Like, what are you doing? So to bring it back to Rhysand and Cassian, when I see them doing all of these things and the narrative doesn't want to explore it in any meaningful way, and then the fandom at large doesn't really want to explore it in any meaningful way, like it's not that deep. Okay, fine, it's not that deep, but still this is out there. This is now in the air, and this is now in the air, and it's being framed as something that's healthy, and that's weird to me. And this is when we come back to your thing about how these books have sold millions of copies. Just because the books have sold millions of copies does not mean that they are not putting shit out into the world that doesn't need to be there. Like Avengers Endgame. I'm so sorry. I hate this movie so much. This movie sucks for a lot of reasons, and I think that it has shown the cracks in the MCU that have reverberated across every other product that has come out. And I don't even call them IPs, I don't call them like pieces of art anymore. I call them products. But because this movie sold really well, and I was part of that. I saw the movie twice in theaters, mostly to kind of process what was happening on the screen, because I just couldn't believe that they put out a movie this long that sucked this bad. I think my thing is that measuring a piece of art by how well it sells isn't really measuring what it's doing as a piece of art. Like Showgirl for example, is from what I understand, the highest selling Taylor Swift album. It is the worst Taylor Swift album. That how much it sells has nothing to do with its artistic value. And again, I don't think that ACOTAR sucks like that. I really don't. And if anything, I don't even think that Rhysand and Cassian are like boring characters. Because again, I wouldn't be here talking about them and like shitting on them and all that shit. But I don't think that it makes me biased to talk about Resand, especially because I do know that Cassie and I have like my own issues with him. But Resand in particular, I don't feel like I'm being biased or whatever. I'm looking at what's on the page and I'm just like, this shit is unacceptable to me. And that is the marker of an anti-hero, or like, or at least a morally gray book boyfriend, where the his actions are being presented to us and we get to decide how we feel about them. But SJM and Akatar doesn't really let us do that. Resand is framed as a good guy, so he's not really serving his purpose as a morally gray book boyfriend. And then he's kind of the blueprint where all these other morally gray book boyfriends are based on. Like we would not have a Xaden Riorson if we did not have Resand. And I would argue that Resand is kind of like a deconstruction of the morally gray book boyfriend that then became the trope codifier, kind of like Yuno Gasai. They could never make me hate you, girl. You're such a good character. Yuno is widely considered to be the trope codifier of the yandere, but she's not really a yandere. She is a yandere, but she's a deconstruction of the yandere, where like the character, like it's saying something about this trope of a character, but the way that she is executed as a character is so good that now she's the trope codifier. Lord of the Rings is actually a similar thing. Lord of the Rings is a fantasy series that is the trope codifier for so many other different IPs, probably including Akatar. Main characters dealing with cursed accessories, ring a bell? But the Tolkien universe is actually like Middle Earth, especially like Lord of the Rings, like the most popular versions of the Tolkien universe are deconstructions of what was happening in the Silmarillion. So what we are seeing in Middle Earth is a bunch of ruins. It's like the ruined remains of the civilization that was an even higher fantasy than the other one. Well, I would never say that Rhysand sucks as a character. If anything, Rhysand is in the Yuno Gasai vein, where like he's not exactly a morally gray book boyfriend, but everybody thinks that he is, which is why it is interesting to break down these characters and talk about them and theorize about them and all that stuff. I have been talking for such a long time. I'm so sorry. But the moral of the story is that I don't think that the amount that an IP sells has anything to do with its ability to be critiqued. I think that Resand might actually be more of a deconstruction than a trope codifier of the morally gray book boyfriend, that now everybody is codifying their own morally gray book boyfriends based on him, which is very interesting to me. And also, I don't think that I'm biased. I really don't. I think I've had a long time to like sit and think about this, and this wasn't like something that like was impressed upon me by the fandom or anything like that. I read the books and I treated Rhysand like a morally gray dude, and I decided that I didn't really like his actions very much. Like I don't think that that makes me biased.